My name is Coordinator Vexthal, and the alarm in my office had never sounded like this before. It was a sharp, cutting tone that meant something was very wrong inside the testing chamber. I dropped my data pad and ran toward the main observation deck. My 3 hearts were pounding so hard that I could feel each beat in my throat. In 300 years of working at the Galactic Combat Assessment Bureau, I had never heard this particular alarm. It only played when a Class 9 test was breaking its own safety limits. But that was not the strange part. The strange part was that the test had only started 7 minutes ago. I burst through the doors of the observation deck and saw my assistant, a small green creature named Clicker, staring at the main viewing screen with his mouth hanging open. His 4 eyes were wide and unblinking. The other observers in the room were silent. No one was speaking. No one was even moving. They were all watching the screen as if they had forgotten how to breathe. I turned to look at the screen myself, and what I saw made me stop walking. Inside the massive testing chamber, a single human female was standing in the middle of the wreckage. She was small, maybe 1.5 meters tall, with brown hair tied back behind her head. She was wearing simple black clothes, the kind humans called combat fatigues. In her hand, she held a small metal blade, no longer than my finger. Around her, the floor was covered in deactivated combat drones. 12 of them. All 12 units, the entire first wave of the Class 9 test, lay broken and silent. The test had begun 7 minutes ago. 12 elite combat drones should have taken her at least 2 hours to deal with, if she could deal with them at all. The average warrior species took 90 minutes for the first wave alone. This human had finished them in under 7 minutes, and she was not even breathing hard. I forced myself to move. I walked to the main control panel and looked at the data streaming across the screens. Her heart rate was steady. Her breathing was normal. Her body showed no signs of stress. According to our sensors, she was as calm as someone walking through a garden. "Coordinator," Clicker whispered beside me, "what are we looking at?" I did not have an answer. I looked at her file again on my personal data pad. Her name was Lieutenant Lily Carter. She was 24 years old, from a place on Earth called Manchester. Her file said she was a standard human soldier with no special enhancements, no cybernetic upgrades, no genetic modifications. She had volunteered for the test only 3 days ago, and she had done something that no one in the history of our Bureau had ever done. She had asked to skip directly to Class 9. The standard procedure was to test a candidate slowly, starting at Class 1 and moving up 1 level at a time over 30 days. This allowed our scientists to study how a species handled increasing pressure. It also allowed us to stop the test if the candidate was in danger of being seriously hurt. Class 9 was the highest level we offered. It was designed for confirmed warrior species, the kind of beings who had spent generations fighting in real wars. Humans had only made first contact with the galaxy 18 months ago. They were considered a young species, still being studied, still being understood. Most observers expected them to be ranked somewhere between Tier 2 and Tier 4, similar to other newly contacted species. The idea of a human even surviving a Class 9 test was considered absurd. The idea of a human asking for one was something I had laughed at when I first read her request. I was not laughing anymore. I remembered the moment Lily had walked into my office to sign the paperwork. She had been polite, smiling, asking if I wanted any of the cookies her mother had baked for her. She had refused all the standard equipment, taking only the small blade she now held in her hand. When I had warned her that the test could be very dangerous, she had simply nodded and said, "I understand. I just want to get this done quickly. I have a video call with my mum at 3 in the afternoon, and I do not want to be late." I had thought she was joking. I had thought she did not understand what she was walking into. Now, watching her on the screen, I realized something terrible. She had understood perfectly. She just had not been worried. The chamber doors opened, and the second wave deployed. This was the gravity well section of the test, where the simulation changed the pull of the floor and walls to confuse the candidate. Combat drones with plasma weapons came through openings in all directions, including the ceiling. The walls themselves became surfaces that could be walked on if you knew the trick. Most species did not know the trick. Most species fell into the pit at the center of the chamber and had to climb out while being attacked from every angle. Lily Carter looked up at the ceiling, where two drones were now hanging upside down. She tilted her head the way a curious child might look at a strange insect. Then she ran toward the wall. She did not run at the wall. She ran at it and then up it, her feet pushing off the surface as the gravity shifted. She moved like she had been doing this her whole life. Within 4 seconds, she was running across the ceiling. Within 5 seconds, she had reached the first hanging drone and was using it as a shield against the others. Within 12 seconds, the entire second wave was deactivated, and she was standing on the ceiling looking around as if she had lost something. "Excuse me," she said into the chamber audio system, her voice calm and clear. "Is there water in here anywhere? I forgot to bring my bottle and my throat is getting a bit dry." No one in the observation room said anything. We just stared. "Right, no water then," Lily said cheerfully. "I will manage, sorry to bother you." She jumped off the ceiling, landed in a smooth roll, and continued through the chamber as if nothing unusual had happened. Clicker turned to me with all 4 of his eyes wide. "Coordinator, she just asked for water. In the middle of class 9. She just asked for water like she was at a coffee shop." I tried to speak, but my voice did not work for a moment. I had to clear my throat twice before any words came out. "Send a message to Director Viscara. Tell her she needs to come down here immediately. Tell her this is not a drill." "What do I say it is?" "Tell her," I paused, searching for the right words. "Tell her that the entire combat assessment program may need to be rewritten, starting today." Clicker nodded and ran to the communication station. The other observers in the room were beginning to whisper to each other now, their voices low and shaken. I heard one of them, a tall blue creature from the Volgan Empire named Threxar, laugh nervously. He was a famous warrior himself, decorated for his service in 3 different conflicts. He had bet me earlier that the human would not survive the first wave. He was not laughing in a confident way now. He was laughing the way someone laughs when they have just seen something that changes how they understand the world. I returned my attention to the screen. Lily was now in the 3rd section of the test, a simulated urban environment with hidden traps and enemy positions on every floor of every building. This section was designed to test patience, awareness, and tactical thinking. Most candidates spent at least an hour clearing it carefully. I had once seen a Drenar Warmaster, one of the most respected warriors in the galaxy, take 3 hours to complete this section. Lily was moving through it like she was on a casual walk. She paused at corners, listened, then moved. She did not use the plasma rifle she had picked up from one of the drones. She seemed to prefer her small blade and her bare hands. When traps activated, she avoided them with movements that looked simple but were actually precise to the millimeter. When enemies appeared, she dealt with them so quickly that our cameras had trouble capturing exactly what she did. I noticed something else. She was humming. She was humming a tune as she moved through the chamber. A soft, gentle tune, the kind a mother might sing to a child. I asked Clicker to identify the music. He ran it through the database and reported back that it was an old Earth song called "You Are My Sunshine." It was, according to the file, a lullaby. She was humming a lullaby. Director Viscara arrived in the observation room 12 minutes later. She was a tall, regal creature from a species known for their long lives and sharp minds. She had been the head of the Bureau for 80 years, and very little surprised her anymore. She walked to the main screen, looked at it for a long moment, and then turned to me. "Vexthal," she said quietly, "tell me this is a recording. Tell me this is a simulation. We are running to test our equipment." "It is live, Director," I said. "She entered the chamber 34 minutes ago. She has cleared 3 of the 7 test sections." 34 minutes, she repeated, as if she could not believe the words she was saying. "The Drenar Warmaster took 6 hours to complete this same test." "I am aware, Director." She watched the screen for another minute, her face becoming more and more still. Then she turned to me with a strange look in her eyes. It was not fear, exactly. It was something deeper than fear. It was the look of someone who has just realized that the universe is much larger and stranger than they had previously believed. "Continue the test," she said. "Record everything. I want every sensor working at maximum capacity. I want every camera angle. I want her heart rate, her breathing, her body temperature, her brain activity. I want all of it." "Yes, Director." "And Vexthal," she added, lowering her voice so the other observers could not hear. "Send a message to the council. Tell them they may want to wake up the senior members. Tell them we have a situation that requires their attention." I nodded and went to send the message. As I walked, I could not stop thinking about something Lily had said when she signed the paperwork. She had been smiling, holding a paper bag full of cookies, telling me about her mother who was a nurse and her father who was a firefighter. She had mentioned that her grandmother had been a soldier in something called the Second World War. She had said it casually, the way someone might mention what they had for breakfast. "Grandma always said the trick is not to think too much," Lily had told me. "Just do what needs doing and worry about being scared later." I had thought it was a strange thing to say. Now I understood that it was not strange at all. It was just the way humans were taught to think. And as I sent the urgent message to the Galactic Council, I began to wonder, for the first time in 300 years of doing this job, whether we had been completely wrong about how to measure the warriors of the galaxy. I looked back at the screen one more time. Lily Carter had reached the 4th section of the test. She paused, looked up at one of the cameras and gave a small wave. Then she smiled, the way a friendly neighbor might smile when passing on the street. "Hello to whoever is watching," she said. "Just letting you know I am still doing all right. Could someone please tell my mum I might be a few minutes late for our call? I am moving as fast as I can." She turned and continued into the next section. The doors closed behind her, and I stood there, staring at the screen, knowing in my heart that nothing about my job, my bureau, or my understanding of the galaxy would ever be the same again. The next sections were going to be far more dangerous. The apex predator units were waiting. The bio-engineered units that had defeated every warrior species we had ever tested. The units that gave Class 9 its terrible reputation. And Lily Carter was humming a lullaby as she walked toward them. She had no idea, I realized, that what she was doing was supposed to be impossible. She just thought it was a regular afternoon. She just wanted to finish in time for her phone call. I sat down slowly in my chair. My legs were shaking. Whatever was about to happen next was going to change everything. The 4th section of the testing chamber was called the Hunter Zone, and it was where most candidates either failed or barely survived. The walls were tall and dark, designed to look like the inside of an ancient cave system. Strange shadows moved across the surfaces, and the air was filled with a low, humming sound that confused the senses. This section was meant to feel scary, to put pressure on the candidate before the first apex predator appeared. Most warriors moved slowly through this section, weapons ready, eyes searching every shadow. They breathed carefully and tried to stay calm. Lily Carter walked through it with her hands in her pockets. I watched her on the main screen, my mouth slightly open. She was looking around at the cave walls with what appeared to be genuine interest. She touched one of the rock formations with a curious finger, as if she was visiting a museum. She paused at a section where the lights flickered in a pattern designed to cause confusion, and she actually laughed quietly. "Oh, that is a clever bit of work," she said to herself. "Whoever built this room, they knew what they were doing. Very nice." Director Viscara, standing beside me now, made a sound that I had never heard her make before. It was a kind of soft, surprised noise, like air escaping from a punctured balloon. She gripped the edge of the control panel with her long fingers. "Is she enjoying this?" she asked. "Vexthal, please tell me my translator is working correctly. Did she just compliment the design of the chamber?" "Yes, Director, she did." "In the middle of a Class 9 test?" "Yes, Director." We watched in silence as Lily continued through the hunter zone. She seemed to be making mental notes about the architecture. At one point, she pulled a small notebook from her pocket and wrote something down. Clicker zoomed in on the page with one of our cameras and reported that she had written, "Tell Marcus about the ceiling lights. He would love this." "Who is Marcus?" Director Viscara asked. I checked the file. "Her younger brother, Director. He is a student. He studies architecture at a place called Cambridge." She is taking notes for her brother, in the middle of a test that has caused trained warriors to give up and request emergency removal. "Yes, Director." The director closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them, she looked at me with an expression I could not fully read. "Vexthal," she said, "I have been doing this job for 80 years. In all that time, I have seen many strange things. I once watched a Krogthun warrior eat his own armor because he believed it would give him strength. I once watched a Drenar candidate try to negotiate with the combat drones. But I have never in all my years seen anyone treat a Class 9 test like a holiday outing." Before I could respond, the chamber sensors gave a sharp warning tone. The first apex predator was about to deploy. I turned my full attention to the screen. The apex predator units were our most expensive and most dangerous test creations. Each one was designed to mimic the abilities of a real predator species from somewhere in the galaxy. They were grown in special chambers, trained by combat experts and programmed to be utterly relentless. They did not stop. They did not get tired. They did not feel fear. They were, in many ways, the perfect hunters. The first apex predator was modeled after the Zorvath stalker, a predator from a jungle world that had been studied for decades. The stalker was 4 meters tall, had 4 arms, could climb any surface, and could briefly become almost invisible by bending light around its body. In the wild, Zorvath stalkers had been known to take down beasts 10 times their size. In our testing chamber, they had a 94% success rate against trained candidates. A panel in the cave wall slid open, and the stalker stepped out. Its long body moved with a smooth, oily grace. Its 4 eyes glowed a soft yellow in the dim light. It made no sound as it began to stalk Lily. She was about 30 meters away from it, looking at her notebook. "Director," I said quietly, "she has not seen it." "Watch." I watched. Lily continued writing in her notebook. The stalker moved closer, its body becoming partly invisible as it activated its camouflage. It was now 20 meters away, now 15, now 10. Lily stopped writing. She did not turn around. She did not look up. She just stopped writing. Her pen hovered above the paper for 1 full second. Then very slowly and very calmly she closed the notebook. She put it back in her pocket. She took out a small piece of what humans called chewing gum and put it in her mouth. She began to chew. The stalker was now 5 meters behind her, completely invisible to normal sight, ready to attack. Lily said, "I can hear you breathing." Everyone in the observation room went still. The stalker did not stop. It moved in for the strike, all 4 arms extending. Lily stepped to the side at exactly the right moment, almost like she was doing a small dance. The stalker passed by her without touching her. She turned to look at it as it tried to recover its balance. "You are very quiet," she said to the creature, as if she was complimenting a child on a good drawing. "Honestly, very impressive, but you are breathing through your mouth and your lungs are quite large. I could hear you from about 12 meters away. Just something to think about for next time." The stalker turned and attacked again. This time it used all 4 arms in a coordinated strike, the kind of attack that had ended hundreds of careers in this very chamber. What happened next was hard to describe even when watching the recording in slow motion. Lily moved. The stalker moved. There was a brief moment when both of them were a blur. Then the stalker was on the ground and Lily was sitting on its back, holding its head still with one hand. "There we go," she said gently. "That was a good try. You very nearly got me with that second one. I had to think about that one." The stalker tried to rise. Lily applied a small amount of pressure to a specific point on its neck. The creature stopped moving. Its yellow eyes dimmed and went out. The first apex predator was deactivated. Total engagement time, 47 seconds. In the observation room, Threxar, the Volgan warrior, sat down heavily on a bench. His face had gone pale. He muttered something in his own language that the translators did not even attempt to convert. He just sat there, staring at the screen. Director Viscara turned to Clichter. "How long does the average candidate take to deactivate a Zorvath Apex unit?" Clichter checked the records. The fastest recorded time before today was 41 minutes, Director, held by a Krell battle master named Satrak the Unbroken. 41 minutes. "Yes, Director." "And she did it in 47 seconds." "Yes, Director." Director Viscara was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "Vexthal, contact Earth's diplomatic office. Politely ask them what other humans they have like this one. I want to know what we have just allowed to happen here." I sent the message. The reply came back within 3 minutes. It was short. "There are about 8 billion humans on Earth," the message read. "Lieutenant Carter is considered to be of normal physical ability for a soldier of her age and training. We have many like her and many more who are stronger. Please let us know if there is anything else we can help with. Best regards, Earth Diplomatic Office." I read the message 3 times before I could process it. 8 billion, of normal ability, many more who were stronger. The words did not feel real. They felt like something from a strange dream that did not make sense. I showed the message to Director Viscara. She read it. She read it again. She handed it back to me without saying a word. On the screen, Lily was now examining the deactivated stalker with what appeared to be genuine sympathy. She patted its head gently. "Sorry, friend," she said quietly. "You were doing your job, nothing personal." She stood up, brushed off her clothes, and continued through the chamber. The second apex predator was already preparing to deploy. This one was different. It was larger, heavier, more solid. It was modeled after the Krogthun war beast, a creature from a high-gravity planet. War beasts were 8 tons of armored muscle, with regenerating tissue and skin so thick that even plasma weapons had difficulty getting through. They were less subtle than stalkers. They simply ran at their target and crushed everything in their path. They had never been defeated by a candidate using only a small blade. The chamber shook as the war beast emerged. It roared, a sound so deep and powerful that the observation room felt the vibrations through the floor. It saw Lily and immediately charged. Lily watched it come toward her. She did not run. She did not look for cover. She simply tilted her head and watched, the way someone might watch a bus arriving at a stop. "Coordinator," Clichter whispered, "is she going to fight that thing with her hands?" "I do not know." "Coordinator, that thing weighs 8 tons. "I know, Clichter." "Coordinator, she is 1.5 meters tall." "I am aware of the comparison, Clichter." The war beast was closing fast. 20 meters, 10 meters, 5 meters. The ground shook with each of its steps. It lowered its massive head, ready to use its horns to strike. At the last possible moment, Lily jumped. She did not jump backward, away from the creature. She jumped forward and up, planting one foot on the war beast's lowered head and using it as a launching platform. She flipped over the creature's back and landed on its massive shoulders. Before the war beast could turn around, she was running along its spine toward the back of its neck. The war beast roared and tried to throw her off. It twisted and bucked. It slammed itself against the chamber walls. None of it worked. Lily moved with the creature, holding onto the small ridges of its armor with the grip of a climber on a rock face. She seemed to know exactly where to put her hands and feet. She reached a specific point on the back of the war beast's neck. Our database listed this point as a theoretical weak spot, meaning that scientists believed it might exist, but no one had ever actually exploited it. Lily put her small blade between two armor plates at this exact point and pushed it in with steady, calm pressure. The war beast stopped moving. It stood still for a moment, then slowly lowered itself to the ground. Its eyes closed. The second apex predator was deactivated. Total engagement time, 3 minutes and 12 seconds. Lily climbed down from the creature. She wiped her blade clean on a piece of cloth she pulled from her pocket. She put the blade back in her belt. Then she sat down on the deactivated war beast and took a moment to catch her breath. "That one was a bit harder," she said to the empty chamber. "Very tough skin. I had to think about where to put the blade. Sorry for taking so long." She had taken 3 minutes. In the observation room, no one spoke. Director Viscara sat down slowly in a chair. Threxar was now openly weeping, though I could not tell whether it was from fear, awe, or some emotion my species did not have a word for. Clicker was simply standing very still, his 4 eyes fixed on the screen. Lily took a deep breath. She stood up. She stretched her arms above her head and rolled her shoulders. "Right," she said. "What is next?" The chamber sensors began to warn us about the third apex predator. This was the one we never told most species existed. This was the prototype. This was the unit modeled after the Ihvari, the species that had ended the last great galactic conflict over 1,000 years ago. Director Viscara grabbed my arm. Her grip was very tight. "Vexthal," she said, her voice low, "stop the test." "Director, stop the test. Now, we do not have permission to use the Ihvari unit on a non-confirmed warrior species. The Council will have my position for this." I reached for the emergency stop control, but before I could press it, Lily looked up at the camera and spoke directly to us. "I can see the door opening over there," she said calmly. "Whatever is coming next, please do not stop the test. I want to finish what I started. It would be rude to leave the job half done." She smiled, and there was something different about her smile this time. It was still polite. It was still gentle. But underneath the politeness, I saw something else. Something patient. Something that had been waiting. "Besides," she added, "I told my mum I would be home for dinner, and I do not want to disappoint her." Director Viscara's hand fell away from my arm. She stared at the screen. So did I, so did everyone in the observation room. The doors at the far end of the chamber opened, and the Ihvari unit stepped out. The Ihvari unit was unlike anything else in our testing facility. It was shaped like a tall, thin humanoid, but its body was wrapped in shifting, dark material that absorbed light rather than reflecting it. It carried 2 weapons that did not exist in any standard military arsenal in the galaxy. The first was a gravity blade, a sword that bent the laws of physics around its edge, capable of cutting through any material we knew of. The second was a neural disruptor, a small pistol that could shut down a brain at a distance of 20 meters. The real Ihvari, the species this unit was modeled after, had ended the last galactic conflict by themselves. A force of just 300 Ihvari had defeated combined fleets from 12 different species. After their victory, they had simply left, returning to their home star system and refusing all further contact with the rest of the galaxy. We did not know where they went. We did not know what they were doing now. We only knew that they had been the most dangerous warriors anyone had ever encountered. And we had just deployed one of them, in copy form, against a young woman from Earth. The Ihvari unit moved at speeds our cameras could barely capture. It crossed the distance to Lily in less than a second. The gravity blade swung at her head in a strike that should have ended the fight before it began. But Lily was not where the blade was. She had moved. I did not see her move. None of us saw her move. One moment she was standing in front of the unit. The next moment she was 3 meters to the left, watching the blade pass through empty air. For the first time in the entire test, I saw something change in Lily's face. She had been polite, she had been calm, she had been almost cheerful, but now, looking at the Ivari unit, her expression became something different. It was still gentle, it was still kind, but it was also focused in a way she had not been before. "Oh," she said softly, "you are the real test, are you not?" The Ivari unit did not respond. It simply attacked again, faster this time. Lily moved with it. She did not block the strikes. She did not try to push the blade away. She simply was not there when the blade arrived. Each time the unit attacked, she had already moved to the next position. It was like watching someone dance with a partner who could not quite keep up with the music. For the first 30 seconds, the unit appeared to be winning. It was striking faster and faster. It was using its neural disruptor in combination with the blade, forcing Lily to dodge in 2 directions at once. She was beginning to take some hits. A small line of red appeared on her arm, another on her cheek. She was getting tired, perhaps for the first time. In the observation room, Threxar stood up. "She is going to fall," he said quietly. "No species in the galaxy can keep dodging that combination. She is going to fall." But Lily did not fall. Instead, she did something none of us expected. She smiled. It was a small smile, gentle and almost shy, but it was a real smile, the kind a person makes when they have finally understood a difficult puzzle. "Right then," she said, "I see what you are doing. Clever timing on the disruptor. Very clever. Let us try this properly now." She shifted her stance. Her small blade came out of her belt. She did not raise it like a weapon. She held it loosely, almost casually, the way someone might hold a pen they were about to write with. The Ivari unit attacked again. This time, Lily did not just dodge. She moved into the attack. She stepped inside the swing of the gravity blade, so close that the weapon could not be used effectively. She caught the wrist of the unit holding the disruptor and twisted it gently, redirecting the weapon away from her face. With her other hand, she made a small, precise cut with her blade against a specific spot on the unit's arm. The arm went limp. The disruptor fell to the floor. The Ivari unit tried to recover, swinging the gravity blade with its other arm. Lily ducked under the swing, came up on the other side, and made another small cut, this one on the back of the unit's leg. The unit stumbled. "You see," Lily said, almost as if she was teaching a class, "the Ivari were very dangerous. They were very fast. They had wonderful weapons. But there is a thing my grandmother used to say. She said that every fighter, no matter how great, has a rhythm. Once you find their rhythm, they cannot hide from you anymore." She stepped behind the unit and made one final cut, this one on the back of its neck, in a spot so small and precise that our scanners could barely identify it. The unit froze. Then it collapsed slowly to the floor, like a puppet whose strings had been cut. The chamber was silent. The chamber sensors registered that the test was complete, all hostiles deactivated. The mission was over. Total time, 2 hours 47 minutes. The previous record for a Class 9 test was held by the Drenar Warmaster Korthak the Iron Heart. His time had been 6 hours and 12 minutes, set 40 years ago. It was a record we had thought might never be broken. Lily Carter had broken it by more than half. In the observation room, no one moved. No one spoke. Director Viscara was sitting very still, her eyes fixed on the screen. Threxar had sat back down, his face pale. Clichter was looking at me with an expression that mixed wonder, fear, and something close to religious awe. On the screen, Lily was tying a piece of cloth around her cut arm. She did it the way someone might tie a shoelace, with quick, efficient motions, not paying much attention to the wound. She picked up her notebook from her pocket and added a few more notes. Then she walked toward the exit of the chamber. Halfway there, she paused. She looked up at the camera. She gave a small, polite wave. "Thank you for the test," she said. "It was good exercise. I felt a bit rusty at the start, but I think I got into it by the end. Sorry it was over so quickly. I was trying to make my mum's call on time. Have a lovely day." She walked out of the chamber. I stood there staring at the empty screen. My 3 hearts were beating hard. My hands were shaking slightly. I did not know what to do. I did not know what to say. Director Viscara stood up slowly. She walked over to me and put her hand on my shoulder. Her voice, when she spoke, was very quiet. "Vexthal," she said, "I am going to need you to do something for me." "Yes, Director." "I need you to begin work on the design for a Class 10 testing chamber." "Class 10? Director, there is no such classification. Class 9 is the highest level." "There is now," she said, "and Vexthal." "Yes, Director." "I do not think Class 10 is going to be enough either, but it is a place to start." She walked out of the observation room. I watched her go. Then I sat down in my chair and looked at the data still streaming across my screens. I looked at the heart rate readings, the breathing patterns, the brain activity. According to all our sensors, Lily Carter had not been seriously challenged at any point during the test. Her body had remained calm. Her mind had remained focused. She had performed what we considered the most difficult combat assessment in the galaxy, and she had treated it like a brisk afternoon walk. And somewhere in the back of my mind, I remembered her words from the file. She had said her grandmother had been a soldier. She had said she had a brother. She had said she was just an ordinary lieutenant. There were many humans, she had said, who were stronger than her. Many humans who were stronger. I thought about that. I thought about it for a very long time. The hallway outside the testing chamber was bright and quiet. I had walked down it many times before, but today every step felt different. I was on my way to meet Lily Carter for her debriefing, and I was not entirely sure what I was going to say to her. The standard debriefing was a list of formal questions, designed to gather data about the candidate's experience. None of those questions felt right anymore. They had all been written for normal candidates, and Lily was not normal. She was waiting for me in the small interview room at the end of the hallway. When I entered, I found her sitting at the table, drinking a cup of tea. Someone, perhaps one of the medical staff, had given her a fresh shirt and a proper bandage for her arm. She looked up and smiled when she saw me. "Coordinator Vexthal," she said, "thank you so much for coming. I hope I have not put anyone to too much trouble." I sat down across from her. I tried to remember what I had planned to say. The words would not come. Instead, I asked the question that had been in my mind for the last hour. "Lieutenant Carter," I said, "how did you do that?" She looked confused. "Do what, sir?" "All of it, the drones, the gravity well, the apex predators, the Ifvari unit. How did you do all of that in under 3 hours?" She thought about my question. She took a sip of her tea. She seemed to be genuinely considering it, the way a student might consider an exam question. "I am not sure what you mean, sir," she said finally. "I did what you asked me to do. You said go into the room and complete the challenges. So I went into the room and completed the challenges. Was I supposed to do something different?" "No," I said. "It is just that. No candidate has ever finished that test in under 6 hours." "Oh," she looked surprised. "I am very sorry. Was I going too quickly? I did not realize there was a minimum time. Should I have waited longer between the sections?" I stared at her. I did not know whether to laugh or cry. I did not know which emotion was correct for this situation. "Lieutenant Carter," I said carefully, "I'm trying to understand. The test you completed today was designed for the most experienced warriors in the galaxy. The fastest previous time was over 6 hours. You completed it in under 3, with a small blade, without any special equipment, while humming a lullaby. I would very much like to understand how this was possible." Lily put down her teacup. She thought about my question for a long moment. Then she shrugged in a small, modest way. "Well, sir," she said, "I suppose the answer is just training." I have been doing this kind of work for a few years now. I went through basic training, then advanced training, then specialist training. We practice this sort of thing all the time. Obstacle courses, problem solving, that kind of thing. Your training is similar to what you did today. Oh, the obstacles are different, of course. We do not have alien drones at home, but the principles are the same. Move smartly, use what is around you, stay calm, do not waste energy, things like that. And the apex predators. She frowned a little. I suppose they were a bit unusual. I have not seen anything quite like them before. But once you understand how a thing moves, the rest is mostly just paying attention. The big one with the armor was the hardest, because I did not know its weak points right away. I had to watch it for a moment to figure out where to put the blade. That took you 2 seconds. Yes, sir. 2 seconds to find the weak point of a creature that scientists have studied for 40 years without finding. I just looked at it, sir. The way it moved told me where its joints were weakest. The way its breathing changed told me where its lungs were. The way it held its head told me where its main blood vessels were. It is just observation. I closed my eyes. I rubbed my forehead with my long fingers. Lieutenant Carter, I said, are you a special case among humans? Are you the strongest soldier on Earth? Are you a champion of some kind? She actually laughed. It was a friendly, surprised laugh. It was the kind of laugh a person makes when someone has just suggested something completely silly. Oh no, sir. Not at all. I am a junior officer. I'm not even close to the best in my unit. There are people in my own platoon who are far better fighters than I am. My sergeant could probably do that course in half the time. And then there are the special operations people. I would not want to imagine what they could do. You are not the strongest human. No, sir, I am very, very far from it. I am quite ordinary, really. Just average for my role. Just average? Yes, sir. I sat there for a moment, trying to take in what she was telling me. I had 300 years of experience studying warriors from across the galaxy. I had compiled records, written assessments, established testing protocols. I had thought I understood how species ranked against one another. And now this small, polite human was telling me that what I had just witnessed, this performance that had defeated every test we could create, was the work of an average soldier of average ability. If she was average, what would an exceptional human be? The door opened, and Director Viscara entered the room. She looked tired but composed. She had been on calls with the Galactic Council for the last 2 hours. She nodded to me and sat down beside me at the table. She looked at Lily for a long moment before speaking. Lieutenant Carter, she said, I have just spoken with your government's representatives. They have informed me that your performance today is being considered for a public award by your superiors. Lily looked surprised. Really? Goodness, that is very kind of them. Although I am not sure I deserve it, I just did the test. They believe you have represented Earth very well. Your government is, in fact, quite pleased with how it went. Oh, that is lovely. I shall have to tell my parents. Director Viscara took a small breath. Lieutenant, before you return home, I have a request to make. Or rather, the Galactic Council has a request to make. Yes, Director. They would like to officially observe a sample of human military training. They would like to send observers to Earth to watch how you train your soldiers. They believe, after today, that humanity may have things to teach the rest of the galaxy. Lily thought about this. She nodded slowly. I do not see why not, Director. I am sure the people back home would be happy to host visitors. We are usually quite friendly to guests. Thank you, Lieutenant. There is one more thing. Yes. You mentioned that you were not the strongest human. The Council would like to know if there are humans you would consider truly exceptional, warriors of unusual skill, champions, as you put it. Lily smiled. It was a kind smile, but there was something behind it that I did not entirely understand. It was the smile of someone who knew something the listener did not yet know. Director, she said gently, Earth has many traditions, many cultures, many groups of people with very specific skills. There are warriors in our history whose names are still spoken with respect after hundreds of years. There are still living veterans who fought in conflicts much harder than anything I have ever seen. My grandmother is one of them. She is 78 years old now. She makes very good biscuits. Director Viscara waited. There are special groups within our military, Lily continued, whose training I have heard about but never personally experienced. Special teams, special schools, special traditions. Some of them are considered quite difficult to join. The training is, from what I have been told, somewhat unpleasant. People who complete it are considered to be very good at what they do. And how good would that be, Lieutenant? Lily thought about the question carefully. Director, I do not really know how to compare them to your standards. I do not have your measurement system, but I will say this. I'm a junior officer with about 4 years of experience. My sergeant has 15 years. My commanding officer has 25 years. The instructors at the special schools have 30 or 40 years. And then there are the retired officers who teach the instructors. Some of them are 80 or 90 years old, but they are still considered to be among the most knowledgeable in our service. They know things that most of us have never learned. She paused, then added, and of course there are other countries with their own traditions, many of them, each one with its own approach, each one quite proud of its history. Director Viscara nodded slowly. She looked at me. I looked at her. We were both thinking the same thing. Lieutenant, I said quietly, how many humans are there in your military? Across all the countries of Earth, sir. I would have to check, but I believe it is somewhere around 25 million people in active service, with perhaps another 50 million in reserve forces or veteran status. 25 million. I had to put my hands flat on the table to keep them from shaking. We had thought humanity might field a few thousand trained warriors, perhaps tens of thousands at most. 25 million active soldiers, plus 50 million reserves. 75 million people, all trained, all capable. And from their own admission, the average among them was someone who could complete our hardest test in under 3 hours while being polite about it. Director Viscara stood up. Thank you, Lieutenant Carter. That will be all for today. We will arrange your transportation home. Please send our best wishes to your family. Thank you, Director, and to you. Have a lovely evening. We left the room. We walked down the hallway in complete silence. Neither of us said a word until we reached Director Viscara's office. She closed the door behind us. She walked to her chair and sat down very carefully, as if she was not sure her legs would hold her weight. Vexthal, she said, we have been very, very lucky. Director, for 18 months since first contact, we have been quietly debating whether humanity should be classified as a low-tier or middle-tier species. There have been proposals from certain parties, you know which ones, to test humanity's resolve through small territorial pressure, to see how they would respond to certain provocations. These proposals have been blocked, but only by a thin margin. I knew which parties she meant. There were always groups in the galaxy who believed that strength was the only language that mattered. The Volgan Empire had been one such voice. So had certain factions within the Krogthun Federation. If those proposals had succeeded, Director Viscara continued, if anyone had decided to test humanity by force before today, what do you think would have happened? I thought about Lily Carter, the average junior officer, calmly defeating a Ivari unit with a small blade. I thought about her words, 25 million active soldiers, people with 30 and 40 years of experience, special groups whose training was difficult to even talk about. I do not want to think about it, Director, I said. Neither do I, and yet we must, because the rest of the galaxy will need to be told about what happened here today, and we must decide how to tell them. She looked out her office window at the stars beyond. There are species who will hear this news and immediately wish to ally with humanity. Good. That is the correct response. There are species who will hear this news and become very, very afraid. That is also acceptable. Fear can be a useful teacher, but there will be some species who will hear this news and feel the need to test humanity's strength themselves, to see if it is real, to find out if there is some weakness we have missed. Director, what do we do about those species? We tell them the truth, Vexthal. We show them the recordings. We let them watch what we watched. And we hope, very deeply, that they understand what they are seeing before they make any unwise decisions. I thought about that. I thought about how many species in the galaxy were quick to act and slow to think. There would be incidents. There would be misunderstandings. There would be those who refused to believe what their eyes showed them, and who would learn the truth in the most difficult way possible. I hoped that humans were as patient as Lily Carter had seemed today. I had a feeling that the galaxy was going to need their patience, and would need it for a very long time. A week passed. Lily Carter returned home to Earth, taking with her a small basket of cookies that the cafeteria staff had baked as a farewell gift. She had thanked everyone politely, hugged Clicker without warning, which had nearly given him a panic attack, and waved cheerfully as her shuttle had departed. The Galactic Council had met 3 times in that week. The recordings of her test had been distributed to all member species. Reactions had varied widely. Some species had requested formal trade agreements with Earth within hours of viewing the recording. The Drenar hegemony, traditionally proud and slow to ally, had sent diplomats with personal letters of friendship. The Krell Confederacy had offered humanity a permanent observer seat on 3 different councils. The Vorthan Republic had simply sent a single message that read, "We have always considered humanity excellent neighbors. Please remember this." A few species had remained skeptical. They believed the recording was fake, or that Lily was an extraordinary case who did not represent her species. They demanded further testing. Their requests were politely declined. I returned to my office on the 7th day after the test, expecting a quiet morning of paperwork. I was wrong. Clicker came running into my office, his 4 eyes wide and his small body shaking. He was holding a data pad, and he was speaking so fast that the translator was struggling to keep up with him. Coordinator, you must come quickly. You will not believe this." "Clicker, calm yourself. What has happened?" "Earth Coordinator, Earth has just sent another candidate, another one for testing." I sighed. I am surprised it took this long. I assumed they would want to send another soldier soon, given the success of the first one. "Who is it?" "Another junior officer." Clicker shook his head. He could not seem to find his words. He simply held up the data pad so I could read it. I read the file. I read it again. I sat down very slowly in my chair. The new candidate was named Margaret Hill. Her age was listed as 73 years old. She was from a place on Earth called Yorkshire. Her profession was listed as retired schoolteacher. She was not a soldier. She had never been a soldier. Her file noted that she was in good health for her age, that she walked 3 miles every day, and that she enjoyed gardening. She had no military training. She had no special skills. She had no advanced equipment. She had simply read about Lily Carter's test in the newspaper and had decided that she would also like to try. In the special notes section of her file there was a single line. It said, "Requested permission to bring her own walking stick for the test. Permission granted." I looked up at Clicker. "Clicker," I said, "have we received any guidance from Earth's diplomatic office about this?" "Yes, Coordinator. The message from Earth said, and I quote, Mrs. Hill is quite determined. We have advised her that the test may be too strenuous for someone of her age. She has informed us that we are being silly. We thought it best to let her come." I stared at the data pad. I stared at Clicker. I thought about what I had learned over the past week. I thought about Lily Carter, the average junior officer, and what she had said about her grandmother. About the 78-year-old woman who made very good biscuits. I thought about the 75 million active and reserve soldiers of Earth, about the 30 and 40-year veterans, about the special groups whose training was difficult to even talk about. And I thought about the 8 billion humans, of whom Lily Carter had said many were stronger than her. "Coordinator," Clicker said, "what should I tell her? She has already arrived. She is in the waiting room. She has brought biscuits." I closed my eyes. I took a long, slow breath. "Tell her," I said quietly, "that we will be happy to test her abilities. Have her sign the waiver." And clicked her. "Yes, Coordinator." "Begin work on a Class 11 testing chamber. Today, I have a feeling that even Class 10 may not be enough for our retired school teacher." Clicker blinked at me. "Class 11, Coordinator." "Yes," Clicker, "and ask Director Viscara to come to my office, please. We have a great deal to discuss. The galaxy is changing, my friend. It is changing very quickly, and I do not think any of us are quite ready for what comes next." Clicker nodded and hurried out of the office. I sat alone for a few minutes, looking at the file of Margaret Hill, retired school teacher, age 73, gardener and biscuit baker. I thought about what I had said about the galaxy changing. I had been wrong, I realized. The galaxy had not begun to change last week, when Lily Carter had walked into our testing chamber. It had not begun to change 18 months ago, when humanity had made first contact. It had been changing for as long as humans had existed, all the way back on their small green and blue planet, where they had been quietly becoming what they were now while the rest of us had been busy with our wars and our politics and our pride. We had not noticed them. We had assumed they were a young species, untested, unimportant. We had been wrong about that, very wrong, and we were lucky that they had decided to be friendly with us. We were extremely lucky. Outside my office window, a shuttle was landing in the visitor's bay. A small elderly woman was stepping out of it, leaning on a wooden walking stick, carrying a tin of biscuits in one hand. She was smiling. She was waving at the welcoming staff. She looked harmless. She looked sweet. I knew, with a certainty I had not felt in 300 years, that she was about to teach all of us a lesson we would never forget. I stood up from my desk. I straightened my coat. I walked to the door. The galaxy had changed forever, and it had been changing all along. We just had not been paying attention. From this day forward, things would be very different. Earth was no longer a young species. It was, perhaps, the most experienced species any of us had ever met. We had simply been too proud to see it. And somewhere on Earth, in a small house in Yorkshire, there was a garden full of vegetables, and a kitchen full of biscuits, and a quiet woman who had decided, at the age of 73, that she would like to see what all the fuss was about. I opened the door of my office and went to greet her. The future was waiting, and the future I now understood belonged to humanity. It always had. We just had not noticed.